All right, well, finally, it looks like there's a card worth talking about after just like, I don't know, dude. The UFC, it feels like it's dying these days. Is it just me, or does it feel like the UFC is falling off? Does it feel like the UFC is just so uninspired right now and just even like great cards, like great fights, like Prates versus Jack Della Maddalena that just happened? But the rest of the card, like, what are they? I mean, they always do Australia bad, so that's a bad example. But the last few weeks, the last few months, ever since the Paramount era started, the UFC has just really been feeling so like, I don't even, it's been one of the weirdest places it's ever been. And I could drop like a standalone video just like titling it, Is the UFC Dying? But yeah, I've been so like not even motivated or inspired to like drop any new videos because my hype for the sport is not there. And if my hype for the sport isn't there, how could I like be motivated and hyped to want to just talk about it? It's really just I can't believe it because of how quickly I got into the sport and was addicted to it for the last 2 years. Is as quickly as I all of a sudden like stopped caring as much about every single week and every single card. These Apex cards, Aljamain Sterling versus Alal and Burns versus Maylot. These terrible, terrible cards, bro. And when you have that for multiple weeks, you just kind of just forget about it like a little bit. Like I did not watch those cards, and I really even Prates versus Jack Della Maddalena with the crazy time difference. Like the rest of the card, maybe I want to see Quillan Sal killed, stunt on Binil Dariush, but besides that, bro, we really have not gotten that anything to really dig our teeth into with UFC, and even the upcoming schedule. Knowing what we're getting for the White House card, I mean, that's really getting near now. It really is almost here, the UFC White House card. And there is something to be excited about with that fight card because it is a pretty packed card with a lot of big names, a lot of big star power, even though it's not what we initially wanted. But here we are, anyways, right? UFC 328. There is a little bit of entertainment value to this. There is a little bit of animosity and hatred that is fueling this main event fight. And it is a card worth talking about that has brought me back to wanting to make a video because the card is above average. It is a great pay-per-view, especially when they added the second title fight in Van versus Taira. Already before that fight, I thought this was a great card. So we're going to talk about it. Strickland versus Chimaev, a fight we all are anticipating to be a chaotic build-up, but will the actual fight itself actually deliver? Because of what Khamzat Chimaev, we know he's been able to do to almost anyone and everyone. And then, you have Sean Strickland. Like, Sean Strickland, I did not expect him to beat Fluffy Hernandez, but he did. He beat Fluffy Hernandez. He knocked him out. Not knocked him out, but TKO'd, finished him. So, Sean Strickland's always a loose cannon. He's always a wild card in how he could fight. We saw him have one of the biggest upsets in Israel Adesanya. Sean Strickland did show in his last performance he's here to stay in the top 10, in the top 5 maybe even. But is he on that level enough to shock the world really and take down a fighter such as Khamzat Chimaev, who seems to have that invincibility aura that seems to be just this unbreakable, unsolvable type of fighter? So we're going to go through this card fight by fight. Kind of just going to skim through the beginning of it, and then we'll get more in depth on the later fights, the ones that I actually know, right? Clayton Carpenter versus Jose Ochoa. Bansangor Sursakayev versus Jordan Santos. As we know, Sursakayev, Khamzat Chimaev's training partner, 11-0. 2 fights in the UFC so far. A fight on the Dana White Contender Series. Ripped a big knee into the shot of his opponent at Dana White's Contender Series to earn himself a contract. Then beat Nolan in his debut on UFC 319 under Khamzat Chimaev, his training partner. Pretty competitive fight in the first round, actually. Nolan was trying to gain some respect out of Sursakayev. Sursakayev, in both fights, really, he's been just toying around with his opponents, kind of flailing around, smiling, this, that. Eventually found the submission versus Nolan, and then took 3 rounds, but eventually knocked out Mechanico on a big card like UFC 322 in Madison Square Garden. Sursakayev definitely has shown he has some flaws in his game. He's still very young. He's still very much building experience as a fighter. But knowing that he's coming out of the Khamzat Chimaev camp, one of these Russian guys that just seemingly does have a very good grappling wrestling style, but could also somewhat he finished Mechanico, like he clipped him, bro. Sursakayev is a good prospect to watch out for in this middleweight division. Sursakayev, he's rising quickly, rapidly. And until proven otherwise, and I know both matchups, he's allowed opponents to kind of, push a pace on him a little bit. He got a little bit tagged up because he's toying around with his opponents. But if he locks in and gets serious, he's going to go through a lot of this competition until he builds his way up to the top 10, honestly. So no surprises here. I'm going to go with Ben Sursakayev to beat the Georgian Santos. William Gomez versus Pat Sabatini. Pat Sabatini, really good ground fighter. Really good, ground grappling, wrestling technician on the ground. Had a pretty dominant performance in his last fight versus, it was versus Mariscal. And then you have William Gomez, long, lengthy French fighter. Both coming off recent bounce-back wins. Over here, I'm going to go with Pat Sabatini. I think Pat Sabatini is really good. I know he had that big loss to Diego Lopez before, but I think he's a fighter that still has some untapped potential that we're going to see come out now in weaker opposition. Is he good enough to be in that top 10? No, I don't know if necessarily, but could he be in the top 15 of featherweight? Yeah, I think so. Kopylov versus Marco Tulio. Honestly, I don't really care too much about this fight. I mean, Tulio lost his last fight. I thought Tulio was really good. He was 14-1, but he was a prospect to watch out for. But then he got finished by Duncan. Violently finished by Duncan. And Kopylov is also looking for a good bounce-back win. He took the loss to Costa. And he fought Gregory Rodriguez, RoboCop. Forgot which card that was. Maybe it was UFC 322. Here's where it gets very good. Very good prelims. Yoel Alvarez versus Yaroslav Amosov. I've been waiting on Yoel Alvarez to step back in there. He is one of my favorite sleeper fighters that most people still aren't on, but I'm on it. He is so damn good. He has the full complete package. Spanish fighter, by the way, out of Spain, just like an Ilia Topuria in terms of country, but completely different build as a fighter, big welterweight in this weight class. Has a violent finish game. Stepping into his last fight versus Vicente Luque, he had a 100% finish rate in fights he won. And Luque was the first guy, ironically enough, Vicente Luque, who actually came off a win in his last fight, beat Gastelum, but Luque was the first person to survive a Yoel Alvarez in a fight where Yoel Alvarez wins. But Yoel Alvarez has finished everyone else in a violent way. Brenner, Drakkar Klose. Just everyone, bro. His only real notable loss in his career so far is none other than Arman Tsarukyan, one of the best lightweights on the planet. And Arman Tsarukyan's on a generational run. But Yoel Alvarez, and by the way, that actually reminds me, he was fighting at lightweight. And then he decided to make the move up to welterweight because I guess he was just too big for the weight class. 6'2", 77-inch reach. They're giving him a 29-1 Yaroslav Amosov from Ukraine, who came in there in his debut and also made short work of his opponent. Really dangerous fighter. Submitted Neil Magny. Yeah, this is a very good fight for both fighters. And personally, who do I want to see win? I want to see Alvarez win. I would love to see Alvarez continue his ascend up the ranks. He could be another Spanish star in this sport. And he has so much potential. He has a complete package of game. He has good takedown defense. He's violently just everywhere. He has so many different weapons he could use. He's so dangerous. Yoel Alvarez could explode at any moment with his elbows, knees. Just very violent fighter. I think this fight ends in a finish either way. Depends how quickly Amosov could get Yoel Alvarez to the ground. It could be one of those kind of performances, or Alvarez finds a way to just be explosive and finish Amosov. We don't know yet that much about this guy, Amosov, but from the looks of it, he looks really good as a prospect coming into the UFC. 29-1. That's a crazy record. Crazy record. So, really good fight. Really good fight to open up stuff. Mateus Rebecki versus Grant Dawson. Both coming off losses. Rebecki always putting on fight of the night contenders. Always going in there and just giving it his all. He had fight of the year caliber fights with Miritek Orabai all the way back in UFC 308, and also had a crazy fight with Chris Duncan. This guy just goes to war. He's a giant forehead, but that forehead is easily able to get cracked open, and he's been bloodied many times in all different types of fights. So Rebecki is always willing to bring a war. Dawson, another prospect that's been having his ups and downs. This is another fun, just hopefully crowd pleaser of a fight. He just lost to Manuel Torres. And we know Torres, how dangerous he is as a fighter. But before that, he had a little bit of a win streak, Grant Dawson. Yeah, another crowd pleaser type of fight. There must be one more prelim missing from here. And then you go to Ateba Gautier versus Ozzy Diaz. The fight that was originally supposed to be in January on the first opening card of the Paramount era. Gautier was supposed to fight Diaz. Diaz pulled out. No, actually, that's not true. Diaz, I think, they were supposed to fight at 320. And then Tristan Vine stepped in. Okay, so never mind. He was supposed to fight Ozzy Diaz back in October. So either way, and we're just gonna continue to pick Gautier, but here, because who are we kidding, bro? They literally are just continuing to feed him these scrub fighters. Like, when are we gonna bring Gautier the real competition? Let him crack the top 15. He's a super freak of nature. He's an athletic, crazy athletic fighter out of Cameroon. Francis Ngannou Jr., as we say, a baby Ngannou. Literally the next stuff from that same part of the world. Just an absolute monster of a fighter. He actually wasn't able to finish Pullaev in January. That went all 3 rounds. I mean, Gautier almost had the shot. He was putting power in his punches, but couldn't get Pullaev out of there. It's pretty remarkable, actually. But as you can see, they've just been feeding him free fights. Just letting him bulldoze through all these guys, bro. All these guys were just sitting ducks, where it was a matter of time before Gautier found the kill shot. So he's went in there and almost finally finished each and one of these guys. And they're just giving him back another matchup that they originally planned for him to continue to build his name. So they're just giving him another one. Another way for him to just keep building on that name, keep making another explosive finish. He might have not finished Pullaev, but mark my words, bro. Just like I picked back in October when he was supposed to fight this guy, he's going to finish Ozzy Diaz, bro. It might come in the first round, it might come in the second round. I ain't going to hold it to a single round, but he's going to find a way to finish Ozzy Diaz. He better. If he can't finish Ozzy Diaz, then we have problems. So I'm going with Ateba Gautier to finish Ozzy Diaz. Right. You open up the main card. King Green versus Jemrey Stevens. Jemrey Stevens coming back on another 1-fight contract. I think he fought like Mason Jones back in Iowa on the Sanhagen Batista, Sanhagen Figueredo card. But Stevens is stepping in there again to fight King Green. King Green, 34-17, just a fun fighter all in all. This dude doesn't give no F's, bro. He's always in there talking, hands mad low, strutting, just having no respect for his opponents. He just gets in your face, and a lot of times it backfires for him, for King Green. I mean, we saw how violently he lost to Paddy Pimblett and Ruffy. Quickly got finished in there, bro. First of all, took the crazy loss to Jalen Turner. Jalen Turner just gave him extra head damage in that fight. Then, okay, beat an old head like Miller. Then got slimed out by Pimblett, just submitted and slept. Spinning wheel kicked KO'd by Mauricio Ruffy, but then has since bounced back with 2 more straight wins versus a Lance Gibson Jr. and a Michael Zellhuber. Very vintage performance by King Green in his last fight. That was all him, bro. He just got in Zellhuber's face. Zellhuber wasn't touching him at all. Zellhuber was not being aggressive enough. It doesn't take that much to knock out King Green. This guy does not protect himself. He keeps his hands down. And King Green found the shot, and he finished Michael. Like, Zellhuber's just not it, because he made King Green look too damn good for what King Green has been. He's an old head in the sport, but he continues to just give us fun fights. He continues to just be kind of like this fun fighter that just, I guess, continue to collect the checks, like a Kevin Holland. Him and Kevin Holland are so alike, bro. They fight so consistently. They'll win some, they'll lose some. Half the time they won't care, whatever. Here we are, King Green versus Jemrey Stevens. Another crowd pleaser fight to open up the card. This one should be fun. That's really it. Obviously, no serious implications from this fight. It's just meant to be a fun fight as we open up this main card in New Jersey. I think I'm going to go with Jemrey Stevens. Nah. Should I really pick King Green to go on a 3-fight winning streak? Maybe. Feels crazy, doesn't it? But I don't care, bro. Whatever. I just want to see a good fight between these two men. Joaquin Buckley versus Sean Brady. Both took big losses in their last fights. We haven't seen Joaquin Buckley since his loss to Kamaru Usman. We haven't seen Sean Brady. Well, Sean Brady a little more recently. He fought back in November in MSG versus Michael Morales. Sean Brady was the number 2 ranked fighter in this weight class. Number 2 or number 1, actually. Maybe he was the number 1 ranked coming into that fight for Morales. He didn't necessarily have to fight Morales, but he really chose to step in there and risk his position, which ultimately, of course, did cost him his position, but still one of the best fighters right now in this weight class. Exceptional ground fighter. No, he's not the most exciting fighter in this weight class. He has a more traditional wrestling style, grappler pressure style. Just works on his opponents all rounds, trying to find the chokes. I was surprised at how little he did in the beginning of that fight to really try and take Morales down. He really couldn't, because Morales is an alien build. He's super long, super lengthy, great range. And Morales just tagged him up, and it was too much. Morales has freakish power like a Carlos Prates. He barely even was putting anything into his shots, it didn't seem like, and still was hurting Brady until ultimately he finished him. But before that, Brady was on a little bit of a tear. He put master classes together versus Burns, Leon Edwards, Kelvin Gastelum. His only loss in his UFC career was to Bilal Muhammad, who did become a champion. I fully expect Sean Brady to get the bounce back fight here versus Joaquin Buckley. Sure, Joaquin Buckley is explosive. He's very much live to finish Sean Brady on the feet. But that's why I think Sean Brady needs to learn from his last performance. Don't try to get fancy or anything with Joaquin Buckley. Don't take anything to chance. Just stick to your bread and butter. Take him down and keep him there and keep him exhausted for 5 rounds. Sean Brady knows what he's got to do. It's not going to be entertaining. It's not going to be fun, but that's the way he wins a fight and stays in hopes of a title shot. Because with Joaquin Buckley, we all know he lost to Kamaru Usman, just had nothing for Kamaru when Kamaru just grappled and wrestled him through all 5 rounds. Takedown after takedown. Buckley had no answers. Before that, though, he had the violent finish versus Covington. Wonder Boy. Beat Ruziboyev. He was on a big win streak, Joaquin Buckley. And we all know he has had one of the most entertaining knockouts ever versus King Sangani. Whatever it was like that crazy spinning back kick KO that Joaquin Buckley had. One of the most elite and vicious knockouts we've ever seen in a highlight tape of the UFC. But here we are. Sean Brady versus Joaquin Buckley. I'm going with Sean Brady. I'm riding with Sean Brady. To get a bounce back fight here. Move up to 19-2. Joaquin Buckley's been talking a lot lately at a lot of the welterweight division. But through the next few months, we're definitely going to see a little bit of a power shift in the welterweight division. This will decide who moves up from this. Already with the results of Prates versus Jack Della Maddalena, that kind of takes care of things over there. Morales, as right now, it doesn't seem like he's getting a title shot, but we're going to see Ian Gary probably fight Islam. And then Bonfim Bilal will solve itself out. Everything will solve itself out. And right now, a cluttered welterweight division where there's a lot of worthy contenders. But after all these fights happen, we'll have a little more clear of a path. The battle of the heavyweights on this card is Volkov versus Waldo Cortes Acosta. Volkov has always been holding his own up in these rankings, holding his position in the top 5 for a long time in a very weak heavyweight division, but heavyweight's starting to get exciting. You got Hogan on the rise. Cable Stevenson is coming up now and signing with the UFC. Cortes Acosta has been the most active fighter of this division. Fought like 6 times in 2025, continuing that streak. Fighting, 3 months later after his big win versus Derek Lewis in the first card of the year. Now has a chance to rise to number 2. Salsa Boy. 17-2, quick hands, finishing everyone, dropping them. Volkov, he got robbed from that Sirlegan fight. But he did what he needed to and beat Almeida, who's not even on the UFC roster anymore. Volkov has been there with pretty much the best guys that this division ever had to offer, including Tom Aspinall, but he's huge. He's literally like Drago from Rocky in real life. This is a tough one. The question is, will Volkov really... this is going to be a fun striking battle. And maybe some wrestling, some grappling, but I think both guys are live to finish each other, but more Acosta to finish Volkov. I know a lot of people are going to be loving Acosta for this fight. Just seeing what he's been able to do on a consistent, just finishing everyone, bro. His quick hands. Like, even finished the fight on a bad eye versus Dalija. The Shamil Gaziev killed his hype with Derek Lewis. That little quick hiccup, decision loss versus Sergey Pavlovich. But, yeah, man. Cortes Acosta. I'm going to rock with Cortes Acosta. And then finally, well, not finally, this is the second to last fight, but Taira versus Joshua Van. And yeah, I'm going to rock with my original pick that I thought was going to be on the Miami card, which is Tatsuro Taira to dethrone Joshua Van. I'm not saying it's such an easy fight for Taira. I'm not saying Joshua Van's just a pushover for Taira, but I think Taira we could expect a similar performance that Pantoja was going to give Van. And of course, if he didn't break his elbow, we would have seen a wholly different fight. We would have seen Taira versus Pantoja, but I think Taira, with his exceptional ground game too, just one of these like high-level Japanese fighters. I could see him doing some things to Van on the ground. And we'll see, with Van, he was doing well in those first few glimpses of the fight with Pantoja, but I think ultimately Pantoja was just going to rip through him on the ground and tear him apart once he finally got a hold of him. But Van's always live to be fun. He had a little bit of a reckless fight with Royval. Royval and him were just trading back and forth in the pocket, crazy combinations, and Van just happened to get the big drop down at the end of that fight, but Royval was on his way to winning that fight. And then Van, again, I think this fight, if Van somehow pulls the win on a fighter like Taira, 18-1, who just came off the nice win versus Moreno, made short work of Moreno, then we could start having legitimacy to what Van is as a fighter in this flyweight division. But until he does that, I don't even really still consider him that high of a fighter right now. Because again, was on his way to losing the Royval fight. Was definitely competing in that fight with Royval, a high-level flyweight. Got his moment. Kind of earned the win. He did knock him down. But Royval was winning most of the rounds. He just was a little bit ahead with the striking. Pantoja, kind of a fluke win to win the title. Pantoja broke his arm. This is Van's real test. And there better not be no injuries either with Taira, bro. Imagine that. Imagine Taira gets injured. That'd be crazy. So, I'm going with Taira over Van. And then finally, Sean Strickland versus Khamzat. It's really crazy, actually. We're already here to another Khamzat Chimaev fight week. It's so long gaps of time in between Chimaev when he fights, but somehow we're already here to another Chimaev fight. Had this injury, whatever, that he said he needed more time to take off. His last fight wasn't So what? He took like 8 months, 9 months till his next fight. Okay, that's not too terrible. It's not years at least. Last fought in August when he had that crazy, the most anticipated fight of 2025 probably was Dricus versus Khamzat. And what did Khamzat do to Dricus? Just tore him apart through all 5 rounds. Eliminated any concerns about his cardio. Went through 5 rounds and became champion, as we all anticipated he would from the moment he stepped into the UFC. Just Chimaev with that signature, super aggressive, first seconds of the fight, he's already jumping at you, getting a hold of you and throwing you to the ground with ease. And we thought, oh, okay, if Dricus survives that first couple minutes of ground pressure, maybe he could conjure up something. But every round, it just was the same story. Chimaev relentless. Nothing for Dricus. Dricus had nothing. So what makes us think that Sean Strickland could be finally the kryptonite to this Chimaev fighter, right? Like, obviously we know this is going to be an insane build up to this fight. There's probably not even going to be a face-off. There's going to be severe security. These guys are going to be multiple feet apart. They're probably going to have a cage in the middle between Dana White so that these two guys can't even get a hold of each other. Who knows what it's going to look like, but this is finally a fight that we have. We haven't had a fight with this much hatred and animosity fueling it in a very long time. This is finally a fight where there's some kind of like real life tension, real life. These guys said very personal things about each other. Sean Strickland's coming after Chimaev for his religion, saying he's he calling the GOAT thing. Like, bro, he said a lot of stuff about Chimaev. And Chimaev, we know he has a short temperament, bro. Even seen what he did with Ian Gary in Qatar when he pushed him. Chimaev's a lunatic. He's a crazy fighter. It's going to be a crazy weekend in general, just with, they're saying now that the White House fighters are going to be there too for their own press conference. So you have Arman Ilyataporia, Khamzat Chimaev, Sean Strickland, all in the same state this weekend. Everyone's going to be in New Jersey, bro. You got Josh Hogan, Khamzat Chimaev, Sean Strickland, Ilyataporia, Arman Sarukian, all these guys in the same area. Yeah, you got to have the whole friggin' SWAT team on standby. You got to have the army ready. These two dudes, bro. Now, the buildup will be insane. The press conference. Sean Strickland's probably wanted this matchup for so long. He's probably going to be fired up. He's going to want to give it his all to not let Chimaev do anything to him like that. But realistically, we just got to see it for what it is. We got to see the fight going the same way Chimaev handled Dricus, the same way Islam handled JDM. A dominant, full round, 5-round performance of a Dagestani Russian guy, beating the white guy. And I'm not saying Sean Strickland does have wrestling experience. And he was able to, stay with it with a guy like Fluffy Hernandez, who I thought was the second most dangerous grappler, wrestler type of fighter in this division, who could give Chimaev his toughest test. Chimaev is going to challenge Sean Strickland way more with wrestling and ground pressure than any other fighter could offer in this division, though. And that's something we really got to see if Strickland's ready for. I'm sure he's going to be ready for it. It would be a Hail Mary for Strickland, but it would shock the world. It would be an explosive moment if Strickland's able to somehow find a way to pop a shot on Chimaev. That could be crazy. We know what Chimaev's done. Insane fighter. Crazy grappler wrestler pressure. Hasn't really found the finish. Well, actually, what am I saying? He finished Robert Whittaker 2 fights ago to earn himself the title shot, made short work of Robert Whittaker. And yeah, with Strickland, it's interesting how many times this guy's getting shots. He beats Israel Adesanya, then he loses to Duplessis. Wins Costa, gets his title shot again versus Duplessis. Loses, then beats Hernandez, now gets his shot versus Khamzat Chimaev. But again, I'm never going to be mad at this fight and that they made it, because this is way more exciting than seeing Chimaev versus Nasruddin Imavov. I'm sorry. It really is. I think everyone would agree. This fight was a better fight to make than Strickland than Imavov versus Chimaev. Imavov's going to have to wait. Maybe Imavov will be next. Maybe Chimaev's going to move to light heavyweight after this and allow room for Imavov to then get his title shot. But and realistically, I think Imavov and Dricus might fight next now that Dricus isn't fighting Brendan Allen. Like, where is Dricus Duplessis? Really, where is he? Why is he not fighting yet? But yeah, no doubt in my mind, man. And it really would be a crazy moment if Strickland is able to get this one. But got to go with Chimaev. Can't really. This dude is just. He's one of the best. Whether you like the style or not, he's just doing it with ease to everyone that's ever stepped foot in there with him, except for Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns is the only guy who took this guy to war. And Gilbert Burns was on like a fight losing streak and retired. But that was Gilbert Burns is older now. That was his prime. That was literally the peak of his prime. And yeah, guys, that's really it. UFC 228, amazing card. Who knows if I'm even going to make a reaction video about this. We'll see how the card plays out. I felt like this card was good enough that I could go and talk about it. But again, UFC these days, like, I don't know what is going on, but it just doesn't feel right now. It just does not feel the same as it did. I hope that could change soon. Is it just me? I don't know. Let me know in the comments, and until next time.